Hey, everybody, you are back for another episode of the Steelers Chat. And today we have another lovely lady on the show, Aditi Kinkhabwala. How are you?
I'm great. Another lovely lady, meaning you're the first lovely lady or your last guest was a lovely lady?
Yes, my last guest were the first women I had on the show, which that's on me. But you are the second. I wanted to keep the women train going, so I'm so
Wait, who
happy
was
to
the
have
first
you here.
woman? Who was the first woman?
I had two women. They host the podcast Yinzers, Yins
Okay.
Hers, and I had them on last week. So yeah, it's nice to have another woman talk sports, especially Steelers sports.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, they do say that the largest growing fan base is women.
Yeah, especially in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of Steelers female fans, and I don't know how they feel after week one, but I wanted to talk to you about overreactions to week one. Are you feeling that vibe right now?
Yes. I mean, can we just look at who the Steelers played?
Yeah.
Are the 49ers not being talked about as a Super Bowl contender? Do the 49ers not have arguably the fastest defensive line in the National Football League?
They're
Don't
pretty
the 49ers have an incredibly dynamic offense that uses all of its parts fabulously, that stems from an offensive genius running the show? I mean, can we calm down for a minute? It's funny.
yeah.
I was just on a show earlier today, Dee, in Cleveland. And I was saying, look, all due respect, I was on the sideline. Obviously, I was on the sideline for CBS in Baltimore.
Right.
Now, Baltimore's offense was most definitely rusty. Things were absolutely sloppy. It looked like an outfit in general that
Mhm.
hasn't played its starters in the preseason. And the offense specifically, they just haven't played yet together.
Yeah.
They played against the Texans. Now, the Texans are most definitely much improved over who they were a year ago. There's a lot of young talent there.
D'Amico.
D'Amico Ryans
Yep.
brings a great energy, aggressiveness, everything. I stood on the Texan sideline last year. I stood on the Texan sideline Sunday. Very different feeling. Having said that, with all due respect, the Texans are not the San Francisco 49ers. And
Right.
then the Bengals and the Browns. Yes, the Bengals have owned the AFC North the last few years. Yes, the Bengals are an elite team in the AFC, but Joe Burrow coming off of that injury, and this isn't the same as the appendectomy last year. You're just a
Right.
little bit more sort of cagey moving. You know, one of the things that Joe Burrow does so well is bleed out of the pocket, and he's
Right.
not doing that when the leg isn't perfect. And it was bad weather, and facing
There's Miles Garrett. That's gonna line up wherever he feels like it.
player, right, with their best player, Joe Burrow, kind of still a little bit gimpy in the
Yeah.
bad weather, and it's just not the same matchup, you know?
Right.
So the Steelers had a really, really, really tough draw week one.
Yeah.
Okay, now are there things to not feel good about? Cam Hayward's injury. Yeah, sorry, can't sugarcoat that. That's
Right.
huge, huge,
It
huge,
is.
huge, huge in so many ways.
8+ weeks we're looking at, and the rookie coming in, it's going to be a lot of movement. There was already a lot of movement, which I was a little uncomfortable with. I felt like the linebackers didn't get to settle in that game, a lot of switching out, but I think you'll see some more kind of settling in, even though there will be switching out just because of the absence of Cam. But TJ Watt, he was the one consistent thing on that defense. 3 sacks, leading the league in sacks already with week one. So at least you have something to be happy about when you see
I
TJ
mean,
Watt out there.
I'm
But
happy in general. It does. Yeah.
yeah,
You're talking to Steelers fans when you say you at least have
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, we're happy about it. I'm actually okay. I try to calm them down. Everyone's on the Fire Matt Canada train. I don't think they ever got off of it from last year. Do you have a view of Matt Canada and his offense at all?
I just think it could be better. I hate to, look, in this role, you sit down with coaches and as a
Mhm.
sideline reporter, you sit down in production meetings where coaches are as honest as they possibly can be to you. And it's not our job, it's not our role to sit here and ever say someone's a bad player or someone's a bad coach or any of that. But I do think that this offense has more potential to be unlocked. And I think that that's fair. And I'm sure anyone there would say that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of just the hope of what some of the fans saw in a couple series in preseason, that the lid was going to be off and you're going to see amazing things. But I think that hype overshadowed the talent of the 49ers, right? I think even the Steelers were drinking their own Kool-Aid, so to speak. They didn't play their game. And I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I wasn't in the locker room, so I can't speak to whether there was overconfidence or not. But the flip to that moving forward, Dee, is that nobody is better with his back against the wall than Mike Tomlin. He responds
Absolutely.
phenomenally well when his team is being sort of undersold or buried. He's phenomenal at getting his team to circle the wagons, and he's just a beast Monday night in Pittsburgh. Monday nights. I don't know when was the last time they lost a Monday night football game in Pittsburgh.
It feels like never. And I've been there when they played the Browns. I think Ben's last home game, when they played Cleveland and they figured out a way to get it done, that was magical. Oh, and that's something that I'll never forget, a moment I'll never forget. But these guys, to me, it feels like a must win. Even though it's still week 2. You got the AFC North. I have them splitting with the Browns, but how are you viewing the AFC North this year? So, I mean, I know it's still week 2, but how are you viewing them from a 1, 2, 3, 4 standpoint?
It's too early. Come on. We're 2 weeks into the season. We're 1 week into the season. It will be the black and blue division. I do think it's the best division in football. And I do think that it's going to be really, really, really tough. And in some ways you could say, oh, well, the Browns serve notice, but they've kind of had the Bengals number the last few years, if you look at it. And I think the more important takeaway was that Browns defense is what we thought that Browns defense was in the preseason. And that Jim Schwartz has brought everything that we thought that he would bring to that defense. The Ravens, they were too rusty to tell. It was almost like a dress rehearsal out there in some ways. And once again, they are snake bit. Once again, they have these injuries. But I can tell you this, Todd Monken is definitely a more flexible offensive mind, and I think that that's good. You don't want to see Lamar Jackson in a box or in a system. Zay Flowers, the young rookie wide receiver, he is legit. Mark Andrews is one of my favorite tight ends in the NFL. And Pat Freiermuth knows that. I think Pat really likes Mark too. Funny, I actually was talking to Mark about Pat on the sideline last weekend. There's a lot of talent there, and there's a lot of defensive talent. You know, there's a lot to. So I think that the Ravens are like the Steelers in that you can't count them out. The last 2 years they've been so snake bit, and yet they're still clawing and still in the conversation and still relevant. So you're not going to count them out. And then the Bengals, I mean, come on, the Bengals are the 2-time defending division champ. And Joe Burrow is one of the, top 3 quarterbacks in the league. We're just going to turn around and say, oh, forget the Bengals. They're on the bottom. No, it's way too early and way too hard to sit here and rank.
It is hard. I've been having this battle, but it starts with winning in division games. You know, the AFC North is playing each other this week, and this is where the battle really gets ugly and dirty and decisions get made. So you have Baltimore going to Cincinnati this week, and of course Cleveland's coming to Pittsburgh, and it's really going to be a coin toss. I have no idea who's going to win. I hate that the Ravens are without J.K. Dobbins, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Williams. They're also riddled with injury, and it just sucks because I feel like I want Baltimore to go into what I call the litter box and win, but because I know that we play Baltimore so tough, and I think we could definitely beat them. But I do want to talk about Zay Flowers. I know this is a Steelers chat. Don't hurt me, guys. But Zay Flowers, how was it? I called him just being sensational, but how was it to watch him in person?
The young man is so much wiser than you would expect, so much more poised than you would expect out of a regular rookie. And they used him in a variety of different ways. And I like that. I like that he's not just, okay, he's your X and there you go. They're moving him around. He's taking handoffs. He is a dynamic player. And I'll tell you a story that I didn't get to tell on the sideline. Odell Beckham Jr. looked at Zay Flowers and he said to him, you'll have 17 touchdowns this year. And when Zay kind of raised his eyebrows a little bit, like 17, Odell said, Someone's got to be offensive rookie of the year. Why not you? That's how good this young man is. That's how high the expectations are, and he's not shrinking from them.
Okay, I love that. I love that. I actually met him at the draft, and seeing him with his family is huge. Just was amazing to see. But a guy I want to counter. He's not a rookie, but with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this is kind of his coming out party. Calvin Austin, with the injury to Deontay Johnson, I think this might be a good time, a good performance from him in the next couple games. Do you have any feelings towards Calvin Austin and seeing him out there, whether it's in the
Listen,
slot or?
he's such an impressive young man. Don't you remember, Dee? We met him, at least I met him last year at
Yeah.
CamHeyward's charity softball game, and his dad was there, and
Yep,
he could
Memphis
not
was
have
in the
been
house.
sweeter or friendlier, or, I liked his dad. I liked him. I was like, oh, I'm so excited to see you. And then
Right.
unfortunately, injuries happen. So great. And you know what? He's smarter than the average player making a debut because he saw everything
Yep.
last year, and even though he didn't get to play, anybody who has to sort of step back and watch, it only helps.
Mhm.
So there's some seasoning there, even though it hasn't necessarily come on the field. And
Yeah.
why not? I'm bullish on Calvin Austin. I think he's going to seize that opportunity.
Yeah, it's for me, the top 2 guys for me this year, Connor and Calvin. Calvin takes a bigger step up just because of the absence of Deontay Johnson, but I feel like Connor is that guy that no one's counting on to be the guy. I know he plays a tight end role, but he's really like the utility knife. He can do it all. The Swiss Army knife, utility knife, whatever you want to call it. You can kind of put Connor in there and he can get it done. They tried to make some passes at him last week that just didn't work, but he was the guy, and his number did get called, and I love that for him.
Yeah, and I love that he's a five-tool player, right? Sorry to
Yeah,
use a baseball term, but just
yeah,
like you said, he is a Swiss Army knife. You can use him in a variety of different ways, and he doesn't just fit one little slot or one little role. I appreciate that.
yeah. So I want to go back to Cam for a second. You've been around Cam a ton. What do you think missing him, his leadership role on the field? Maybe he's on the sideline, right? How do you think that impacts the Pittsburgh Steelers?
You it's huge. You can't just be dismissive of it. This is your captain. This is your veteran leader. This is your longest tenured defensive player. This is the guy that very quietly does the dirty, maybe not very quietly actually, but does the dirty work and draws double teams and is being that big, huge body up front and freeing some space for TJ and Alex Highsmith to work. And he doesn't necessarily get the attention for all that
Right.
he does up there. And beyond that, he is the leader. He is the vocal captain. He is the guy that talks to his teammates. And so it's huge.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah. It is.
no matter how much of a game breaker TJ Watt is, no matter how much of a game breaker Minka Fitzpatrick is, you still sort of think of that defense as Cam's because of the time served and
Yeah.
because of how long he's been the captain. That doesn't, you don't just ameliorate for that just like that. So, and I'm sad. I'm sad for him.
Me too.
I know to keep coming back as you get older and your kids get older is always harder.
Yeah, I'm wishing him a successful surgery today and super fast, like magical power recovery. And we'll see him later on in the season. I anticipate, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, those guys kind of stepping up there. A Larry Ogunjobi, all those guys up front, just kind of pouring into the young guys that will be filling his shoes. And I think in some ways it'll bring this defense a little closer together because they're going to have to communicate more. They're going to have to communicate better. They're going to have to find ways to fill in gaps that otherwise Cam, being the leader he was, would probably just non-verbally just do it, right?
Right.
So I think those guys are going to have to, find a way to be better with, talking to each other. Man, it still makes me so sad. So I do want to talk about Kenny Pickett for a little bit here. He didn't have the best game. And I recall being in that stadium for the home opener last year, and any given point where Mitchell Trubisky did not make a completion, did not threw an interception. We were hearing Kenny, Kenny. Do we think now that Kenny's in that space and any mistake he makes, it's not going to be looked at as microscopic as it was with Mitch? All the blame goes on to Matt. Do you think that is just like a fan thing? The fans just wanted Kenny in there so he could do no wrong now. Like, do you feel anything towards that?
I mean, I remember when I first started covering the NFL, someone once told me, an old coach told me, the most popular guy on any team is the backup quarterback. And that's fans are, a quarterback gets more credit than he's due, and he gets more blame than he's due. And in Kenny a year ago, you had the conquering hero. You had the Pitt player who had such success on that same field and the first round draft pick. I don't know that it's about the scrutiny and Kenny can withstand that. That's not it. Just the offense as a whole needs to, I'm not worried about Kenny. I'm still just as bullish on Kenny as I was. He's going to be fine. Just the offense needs to be better as a whole.
Yeah, I think Kenny, I think it's just one of those moments. I think he was in his head. I think the game was faster. I think they just, I don't want to say they.
I don't even know if that's it. I mean, he threw 2 picks. One of them, the receiver fell down, and the other one, he's trying to make a play, which you credit the fact. I think about a stat line. He's just trying to make something happen.
I do feel like the game got behind them. He was. I don't even think he was going through maybe all the reads, of course, but I mean, there's so much happening in that game.
You need to be able to run the ball to help your quarterback. You have to run the ball.
I mean, when you get behind like that, yeah, and you're going for it on 4th down, field goals are not an option, and you want to get him in the rhythm. I feel like I'm making excuses for Matt Canada, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person, but yeah, I anticipate. I know Kenny is taking this to heart, and I anticipate them to move the ball better. You will see more Najee Harris. You will see more Jalen, and it's something about the 2-minute drill with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's like a thing of magic sometimes. You saw it with Ben, and then when you saw the one time they did get in the end zone with Kenny, it brought back old memories. Seeing them go tempo and get in the end zone, and Pat Freiermuth being there and getting the dab in the end zone. It was magical. I'm hoping that we see that a few times on Monday night. And so I'll ask you, what do you think, or if you could make a prediction for the score on Monday night?
I'm not in the business of predicting scores. I'm sorry. I can't do that. I think it'll be a great matchup, but don't sleep on that Browns defense. That's what I'd say. Don't sleep on that defense, because they've got a very, very, very disruptive, fierce front. And when you've got Myles Garrett on one side and Zadarius Smith on the other, that's one of those 1 + 1 = 3. And you can move Myles Garrett inside on 3rd down, and that's just, again, crazy. And that back end is insanely sticky. MJ Emerson, their 2nd-year cornerback, is just, when I watch him up close, I see how he's grown and what he's done. Greg Newsome is as tough in the slot. He's as tough as a slot quarterback as I've seen since maybe Mike Hilton. And then, obviously you've got Denzel Ward on the other side. And then offensively, the Steelers need to be able to stop Nick Chubb and the run game. And Deshaun Watson's been running too. He's been using his legs as well, and they have several designed runs in their playbook. So you talk about Cam Hayward not being there, the Steelers better be able to stop the run. Or at least
I think that is one of Mike Tomlin's biggest concern is Nick Chubb, and and getting to him, but you can't discount the ability for Deshaun Watson to run as well. So that is big issue. You saw what Christian McCaffrey did to the Steelers. I think they were probably a little bit more focused on Debo, but Ayuk went off. Ayuk went off in the secondary. Secondary is one of my biggest concerns with the Steelers in the off-season, outside of the linebackers. But the linebackers kind of proved to me in the preseason that they had it done, and it just kind of all fell apart. It all fell apart. So hopefully they can contain Chubb, and you got Amari Cooper. What is it? Elijah Moore, and whoever else they put outside there.
He's a stud. Elijah
Yeah.
Moore is way more than you think he is.
We'll see what happens. If I don't like predicting this early, I like to kind of wait till everything kind of settles. So I'll probably run a prediction on Friday. But first and foremost, I do want to thank you for coming on to the Steelers chat and kind of talking not just Steelers, but AFC North football. It is very competitive, and you are one of the ones on the grounds hearing what the players are saying and doing. And we appreciate you for all your hard work.
Well, thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, good luck this season, and I'll see you on the sidelines.
All right, sounds awesome. Take care.